Well, Kevin Bacon, you just finished up the second season of The Following on Fox. I got to ask you a question. I've heard many actors over the past few years say that of all the things they've done in acting, whether it be plays, movies, comedies, dramas, the single hardest job for an actor is to be the lead on a drama series. Just the amount of hours and the work involved. Would you, now that you've done this 2 years, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. But, I like challenges, and I find it actually kind of exhilarating. And, one of the things that I started to realize as the years went on in my career was that I was spending so much time doing things other than acting. It's either in pursuit of work or waiting for lighting setups or, sometimes working in an effects world, trying to have them get the technical aspects of filmmaking right. And what I really like is the time between action and cut. I like to say lines and hit marks and feel things and emote and when you do a television series, a lead on a drama, you turn around and you've just shot 16 hours or whatever it is, but you realize that a giant part of that time in your life was spent acting, and if you really, really love to act, you'll get an opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I don't know who the actor was. It was one of the legendary actors said that speaking of that, said a few years ago that they don't. I would do the acting for free. They paid me for sitting around and waiting.
Yeah, well, there is something to that for sure, and because of that, it's kind of been energizing in a strange way. I'm not going to say that I would say the days are easy. They're not. They're hard. It's also very dark material, so you're kind of going to a very dark place again and again and again. And we shoot in New York, which it's got its challenges technically, but also just weather-wise. And certainly last season was a tough one on the crew, as well as the cast.
Tell us, in your opinion, from the moment we first met Ryan Hardy to the moment that you ended the second season finale, where is he now? In his mind, in his heart, in his body, where is he now?
Well, when we met Ryan this year, he had, at least on the surface, seemed to have pulled himself together. His heart was working better. He was in better shape. He had members of his family that he was communicating with in a deeper kind of way than he ever has. He was letting people in and had seemingly kind of dropped this obsession that he has with this man, with Joe Carroll. That didn't really last very long. I mean, I think pretty quickly you found out that he had a secret room where he was still tracking Joe, that he, even though he wasn't drinking, I think, was still kind of exhibiting, kind of alcoholic sort of tendencies, to latch on to something and not be able to let it go. And by the end of this, I mean, and he spends that season with the idea that Joe is alive, and once we find out that Joe is alive, he says numerous times, "I'm going to find him and I'm going to kill him." And if you think about what that's like, to have that kind of anger and that kind of pain and just to be living with that. I mean, I can't imagine. It's like people always throw out, oh God, I want to kill that guy, but you don't really want to kill. You don't really picture yourself, with a gun in your hand, and it must have been, I think, a tremendous burden on this man, a tremendous, tremendous burden. So by the end of the season, he makes a decision not to kill him. He has the opportunity, he has the gun to his head, and he chooses to let him live. And I think in a lot of ways, that's kind of a healing kind of thing for him. And even though his relationship with Claire ends up not working out, and she kind of steps away from it, I think that I'd like to think that by the end of last year, he truly is in a slightly better place. Of course,
That
it's not
finale.
very long.
No, that finale was such an action-packed. Of course, the whole season is, but I mean, on any given show like this, you have to have an amazing finale, or you let the fans down. What did you
Right.
think about that particular episode?
I love the finale. I thought it was awesome. I mean, I think it was great from an action standpoint, and of course, I like to do that kind of stuff. It's fun. It's like all about being a boy, and getting to run and fight and shoot and do all those things that you kind of grew up with as a kid, just having fun with. Um, But I also felt like the scenes, there were some really good and well-written scenes. I mean, that scene around the dinner table where the boys pour vodka down my throat and force me to, admit that I, killed my father's killer when I was 17, and sort of, uncover all this really dark stuff about that. I thought that was really, really well written. And the scenes, the final scene with Joe and the scene with Claire to kind of say goodbye. It was all great stuff for me to play. When I look at a script, the first thing I look at is character and is scenes and what do I get a chance to do in this one? And the finale had it all.
With the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years of television, it's getting harder and harder to surprise and shock the audience. So many
Sure.
shows have to go to outlandish methods just to do that anymore. What do you think about that in just terms of the current state of TV and how your writers and producers and you as an actor have to find new ways to surprise people?
Well, I think you're right about that. I think that, and especially with our show, I mean, people go, okay, you've had a lot of characters turn out to be bad who maybe you thought were good. You've had characters unexpectedly die. Characters that we would never think of. It's even not even really flagged anymore. In the media when we have a character die, because it's kind of like people just assume it's going to happen. So I think that, moving forward, we need to find, besides those two things, other ways to surprise people. Aspects of characters that you really didn't know they had, flashbacks that tell a story that it comes out of left field. Introduction of new characters. These are all things that we're thinking about for next season, and we are discussing. I feel like it's important for us to continue to do that, to continue to have some surprises and some shocks, because that's kind of what our fans like on the show. But I also feel that it doesn't have to be 3 times an episode. I think we can pick our battles in terms of that kind of stuff. Television in general is I don't think we need to push the envelope anymore. I mean, the envelope's been pushed about as far as it can be pushed now, and I think that was a good process for television to go through, and I think that viewers responded to that and weren't completely horrified. But I don't really think that needs to be the agenda right now. The agenda should be good stories, telling good stories, well-written characters, well-acted shows, and just compelling, drama.
I tell you, the only surprise that I could think of at the moment about your show is you've directed a lot of other things, but I keep waiting for that week where it's going to say directed by Kevin Bacon. Why haven't you done an episode yet?
I haven't done an episode. It's a very simple kind of technical reason, and that is that in order to really prep an episode, you have to not be working because they overlap. So in a way, the only episode that I could do would be the first episode back from Christmas break. And I'm not willing to give up my Christmas breaks. I mean, it's I know that other actors on other shows like to direct their own shows, and I sort of feel sometimes that's out of a desire to kind of get their feet wet in the world of directing. And I've directed enough stuff that I don't need to look at the following as a training ground. But I still may do it someday if I can figure it out. I also feel like you mentioned that my plate's pretty full with just playing the guy. So it's kind of like the idea of adding more pressure, more stress. It could run the risk of having diminishing returns, And we have great directors on our show. I love going to bat for them. I love, one of the things that's kind of fun about television is meeting new directors, meeting new people and new actors that kind of cycle, through the process. So I'm pretty happy just playing the guy.
Yeah, I would think it would be harder for you because when you do see that with other actors, they generally will pick a week where they don't have as much to do. Maybe it's more of an ensemble episode, or they don't have as, but you have a lot to do in every episode.
Yeah, so I think that makes it difficult.
Talk about James Purefoy. He just does such a great job on this show. You don't get to act opposite him all that much because you're in different plot lines, different storylines. Obviously, at the end of the season, you did. Just talk about working with him.
From the time we sat down across a table in the very first episode of the pilot, the pilot of the show, we just felt a tremendous kind of connection and kinship. I think that our approaches to work are very similar in that there's a lot of preparation. We come ready to go. We just kind of face off and just start batting the ball back and forth. And he's a great talent. I think that he's taken this guy and who's just the most heinous person. Such questionable. I mean, he's a lunatic and has done horrible things in the course of the show. And Kevin Williamson never backed off from seeing the evil and the sickness of Joe Carroll, and yet at the same time, James has somehow miraculously been able to make him appealing, make him charming. I mean, we run into people all the time, that have Joe Carroll crushes, and I don't think there's a lot of people that really could pull that off. You're right, though, that one of the sad things about the relationship between the two characters is that, he's got to be on the run from me, you know what I mean? I have to not be in the same room with him. So there was a lot of time this year where we really didn't have any scenes together, and we'd be on phone calls, but it's just not the same, And then in the last few episodes, we were able to come together, and that was a blast.
I was able to interview him right before the finale last year, and even just sitting across from him on the computer, there's just a twinkle in his eye. You could tell he really enjoys what he does.
He does. He does. He loves it. He loves it. And and so it's going to be interesting to see where he goes next year. He's in jail. We see him shackled, and he's already escaped from jail twice. So I don't know. Let's see what happens.
This year on television, there was another moment, probably one of my favorite moments of the whole year, and that was when you appeared on Jimmy Fallon a few weeks ago, 30th anniversary of Footloose. Did it take much convincing to recreate that dance number?
It was my idea, to tell you the truth.
Oh, good.
What happened was, what happened was, I had this Fallon appearance coming up. We were right in the middle of shooting the following. And it was maybe our second to last episode, so the energy was, really super dialed up, and we had some really hard stuff to do. But I said, I've been seeing how, as it's very obvious in late night television, there's the viewership, but then there's also this whole other thing from the bits, and a lot of the hosts these days have really tapped into that and made a lot of these bits go viral, and they're really kind of well done and well crafted and hilarious. And so that even if you didn't watch the sit down, you still have some kind of an association. So it was it had been 30 years since Footloose, and I thought, well, maybe that would be kind of a funny thing. I said maybe we could do something like Footloose-ish, and I didn't know what it was. Either maybe we could sing the song, or I kind of thought it would be some little thing where I was teaching Jimmy how to dance, you know. But I didn't pitch anything like what they came up with. And so when they came back to me, I didn't really kind of hear from them for a while. And then when they came back to me with this massive, extensive, you know, deal, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know if I can get this together, folks. I mean, you know, this might be a little bit out of my skill set. And I was also in the thick of doing the show, so just the actual time. And the day before we went in to shoot it, they sent me a video that was they had a stand-in, you know, doing the moves, who was a great dancer, and he was doing all the moves that I was going to have to do the next morning. And we shot until probably about, I don't know, 1:30 in the morning out in New York in this big church scene. And so I got back to my apartment, and at 2 o'clock I'm sitting in front of my computer watching this, trying to remember these moves, you know, and like dancing around my kitchen like an idiot, knowing that I had to get up the next day at 9 o'clock, tape all the stuff, then do Jimmy's show, then be back out on set for a night shoot. So it was a couple of really tough, kind of scary days. But they're it's such a well-oiled machine over there, like in terms of making it work and getting the work done in the course of the day, that, you know, we knocked it off in, I don't know, 3 hours, and then we only had the entrance to do. So I was really surprised and sort of touched at, you know, how well people responded to it. You know, I mean, I thought it would be fun, but it just made people so happy. And I don't know if it was, I haven't really quite figured out why, but it seemed to work.
I can't believe it's been 30 years either. I remember seeing that of all things, a drive-in that summer. So at the time, and then in the preceding decades after, is that the single most recognizable thing you've done, the thing people most want to discuss?
I would say that's probably the most, but you'd be surprised how often other things come up too. And you know, for instance, like if I'm not so much in it, like in New York or LA or Chicago, the urban centers have all kind of different take on things. But if I'm out in the heartland, you know, in the middle of the country, it's often Tremors. You know, that movie has just a really warm spot in its heart for people in the middle of this great, you know, nation of ours. And then, you know, other people, just kind of funny, random stuff, you know. So it's you know, look, I mean, I like to say that people say, what's the secret to your longevity? And I say, well, longevity actually is the secret. You know, if you just hang in there and you just keep throwing this shit against the wall, you know, sooner or later something will stick. And you know, it's nice that in the course of this life, there's been a couple, you know, out of quite a few, but that didn't stick, but there's been a couple that stuck.
Well, I think you've made very good choices in terms of variety. I don't think you, like some people, have pigeonholed themselves into certain kinds of things that they like to do or certain kinds of roles, and you've never done that.
Well, I don't, yeah, because I mean, really the whole idea for me, or my whole concept of what being an actor was to do different things, you know. It was never, and I remember that first kind of moment when I did a part and people responded to the part, and then after that, those were the kinds of parts that I was offered or got or was called in on, you know. And I was like, no, but this is not right. That's not what I want, the different kind of part. Now that I did that guy, that's the last guy in the world I want to do. I don't want to do that guy twice. I want to do some other guy. That to me is what acting is. I mean, it's a corny thing, and I've said this before, but when I was a kid, I was a tiny little kid. I loved hats, and the hats to me were all characters. Cowboy hat, you know, coonskin cap, fireman, whatever they were, and they were all hanging on this rack that my mother put up on the wall in my room. And so to me, that's still what I'm doing. I'm just taking down a different hat and just putting on a different hat.
We're an awards website. I want to ask you a couple of awards-related questions. You have been an actor for a long time, I guess going back to Animal House in the late 70s, and you've won 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards. You've been a member of that guild a long time. One of those was Ensemble for Apollo 13, and one of those for Taking Chance. What did that mean for you getting that from your peers?
Oh, great. Fantastic. I mean, amazing. I was, deeply touched and moved, and it was great. It was great in both cases. In both cases, interestingly enough, they were sort of real people and real stories, and stories about that were very kind of specifically about sort of the American way in a funny kind of way, the desire of the Apollo 13, of the Apollo NASA kind of thing to get to the moon, and the heroism of these guys who tried to make it back. And then Taking Chance, kind of similar in that, the quiet heroism of the process of bringing back remains and putting them in their final resting place from military who are killed in action. And I was proud of both of the movies, and certainly, it's the olive and the martini.
I think your single best performance, it wasn't a long performance, but just in terms of maximum impact, was JFK. And I don't think I've ever heard you talk about that, at least since that actually was out in theaters. Tell us just a moment about working on that film and the reaction.
Well, I was at a point in my career where I was feeling very frustrated, and I was kind of doing a lot of leads, and they were in different sort of genres of movie, but none of them were working, and less of them started coming in, and I kind of felt like it was really a kind of a low point. And I had an agent. She was an agent at the time. Then I kind of talked to her in desperation about some kind of way to turn this around, and she said to me, when I first started watching you, you were an actor in New York on the stage, and you were a character actor, which is what I was from a very young age. I was less of a leading man and just more of a character actor, and I was playing, kids from Scotland and England and the South, and kind of tough guys, and all these sort of different. I played a hooker, a male hooker, and all these different kind of bizarre characters. And she said, I think we need to kind of get that going again in your movie life. And the first thing on that agenda was this Oliver Stone movie that she also was representing Oliver. And I went in and I said, I can do this part. And he said, you really think you can do this part? I said, yeah. And he said, well, can you be transformative? And I said, yeah, I think so. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I think I could play the part. And it took me about, I think I shot maybe 4 or 5 days on JFK at a couple of different times. And it came out, and it completely turned my career around. It was, I don't think so much about like big breaks or seminal moments, you know what I mean? To me, it's all sort of like a process when you're in it. But when you look back, you don't ever go, wow, this is my moment. But when I look back on the JFK thing, it really led to a whole other chapter in my career. And it taught me a lot, because I said to myself, okay, well, what I need to do is forget about the size of the role, forget about the size of the budget, forget about the size of my salary. Just look for the part. If it takes you 2 days to do it, just look for the part, because in the part there will be truth and strength and also just creatively fun. And that's what I've continued to do ever since. As a result of that, I think that I ended up over the years, doing less and less sort of leading man stuff, and that's what's kind of fun in a way about the television show, is that I'm the guy. I mean, he's a mess, and he's not without flaws and character, but he is the guy, and that's been fun as well.
We'll conclude here, but I just want to ask you, I've asked this of several of the Academy voters. I'm guessing you're a member of the Academy. You vote on the Oscars?
I am.
I've asked this to probably 20 different people. Love to hear these kind of responses. And you don't have to give specifics unless you just want to. I'm just wondering, since you've done this for a while, when you're marking that nomination ballot or you're the final ballot for the winners, what kind of performances get your attention? What kind of performances does a Kevin Bacon want to vote for?
Well, I try not to look at things like that indicate flashiness. You know what I mean? That sometimes are. I think things like accents and makeup and weight loss, weight gain. All these things are incredibly important and admirable, and I love it when people are transformative in their roles. But they can't be the reason that you vote for somebody. The vote has to come because through the eyes you see the heart and the stomach and the gut of that man or that woman. You see you see the joy and the pain and or whatever, anger, passion, love, all these things, that's really what I try to focus on. And I suppose, back to this notion, if somebody if you've never seen somebody before, and their performance is fresh and rewarding, that's great. But I also like the idea of seeing something come from someone that surprises me. I didn't really know that he or she. I've never seen them do something like that before. But it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one to try to rate or classify or give prizes out. I mean, I know how necessary it is, and it's a great thing for building, excitement. And I think that there's a lot of films that without the awards season really would never probably see the light of day, especially this day and age. Dramas and or small comedies, in the cinema are tough to. It's tough. It's a tough go. It's tough to make them happen. So the awards tend to somehow get some people paid back. But that being said, it's hard. It's hard to make decisions about who should live and who should die.
That's right, that gladiator mentality. I know what you mean. In some years, it's even more difficult. I look at a year like this past year, that Best Actor category, all 5 of those men, probably any one of them could have won in another year because they were so fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, they were all phenomenal performances.
Well, we really enjoy you on The Following. I know you mentioned before we started you've got an album with your brother coming out soon. Tell us a couple of details about that.
Let's see. It's called 36 Cents. The first track on the record is called Hookers and Blow, which is a song that I wrote, a very sad song.
You just kind of ease the audience into the first song.
Yeah, actually, we hit him with a baseball bat right out of the gate. And we're going to do some touring with it this summer, and we're proud of it.
And another movie coming out?
I just finished a picture here in Los Angeles called 6 Miranda Drive, which is it's a horror movie, but it's horror in the world of The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, The Shining, as much of a drama, a family drama, as there is a supernatural kind of presence. And I had an absolute blast doing it. When I read the script, I thought to myself, if we take out, the monsters, I'd still be interested in doing this movie because it's just a great little family drama.
Well, listen, you're a busy man. We certainly appreciate your time today, taking a few minutes to talk about your career and the following. And good luck with everything this summer. Hope you have at least a few easy weeks off.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Nice to talk to you.